The island looked worthless. A flat strip of coral and sand sitting alone in the vast Pacific Ocean. No famous battle had been fought there. No newspaper reporter cared about it. Most Americans had never heard its name. Even many officers sailing across the Pacific could have passed it on a map without giving it a second glance. Yet in the months after the bloody Battle of Tarawa, that forgotten island became the center of one of the most important military construction projects of World War II. It happened so quickly, so quietly, and with so little concern for normal approval procedures that many people later wondered how it had happened at all. And at the center of the story stood one of the most feared and respected commanders in the Pacific. Admiral Raymond A. Spruance. He was not loud. He did not chase attention. He rarely gave dramatic speeches. But beneath his calm personality was a commander known for making hard decisions without hesitation. Sailors respected him because he was steady under pressure. Subordinates feared disappointing him. Senior officers knew that when Spruance became convinced something needed to be done, stopping him could be nearly impossible. After Tarawa, he saw a problem that could not wait. And the solution he pushed forward would transform a forgotten island into a giant weapon pointed directly at the heart of the Japanese Empire. To understand why, you have to begin on November 20th, 1943. The sun had barely risen over the Gilbert Islands when American Marines began their assault on Betio Island in Tarawa Atoll. Military planners expected a difficult battle. What they got was something far worse. As landing craft approached the beaches, they ran into a problem that many planners had underestimated. Coral reefs surrounding the island trapped hundreds of landing vehicles far from shore. Marines were forced to leave their craft and wade through water while carrying heavy weapons and equipment. Japanese machine guns opened fire. Mortars exploded. Artillery shells crashed into the water. Men fell before they ever reached the beach. The battle became one of the most shocking fights Americans had seen in the Pacific. Although Tarawa was eventually captured after 76 brutal hours, the victory came at a terrible cost. Photographs of dead Marines shocked people back home. Military leaders studied every report coming from the battlefield. Questions filled headquarters across the Pacific. What had gone wrong? What needed to change? How could future invasions avoid similar problems? Among the officers studying those lessons was Admiral Raymond Spruance. By this point in the war, Spruance already carried an enormous reputation. Earlier in the conflict, he had commanded American forces during the Battle of Midway, one of the most important naval victories in history. His calm judgment had helped destroy 4 Japanese aircraft carriers and change the course of the Pacific War. Now he faced a different challenge. The war was moving west. American forces were advancing island by island toward Japan. Every new operation required ships, fuel, ammunition, aircraft, repair facilities, hospitals, warehouses, and thousands of support personnel. The distances involved were enormous. The Pacific Ocean is unimaginably large. Supplying a fleet across thousands of miles of water created problems unlike anything military planners had faced before. After Tarawa, Spruance became increasingly convinced that future operations required something much bigger than another temporary anchorage. He needed a major forward base. Not eventually. Immediately, the problem was finding the right place. As planners examined maps, attention focused on a lonely atoll in the Marshall Islands. Its name was Kwajalein. American forces captured Kwajalein during Operation Flintlock in early February 1944. The victory represented another major step toward Japan. But what interested Spruance was not just the military success. It was the geography. Kwajalein possessed one of the largest lagoons in the world. The calm waters inside the atoll could shelter huge numbers of ships, cargo vessels, destroyers, battleships, aircraft carriers, repair ships, tankers, virtually an entire fleet. Many officers saw an important anchorage. Spruance saw something much bigger. He saw the possibility of creating a massive operational hub deep inside enemy territory. The idea sounded simple. The reality was not. Transforming a remote Pacific atoll into a giant military base required mountains of equipment, engineering units, construction battalions, fuel storage systems, docks, airfields, communications networks, hospitals, warehouses, workshops, roads, and housing. It would cost enormous resources. It would require manpower already stretched across multiple campaigns. Most importantly, projects of that scale normally moved through long chains of approval. Committees reviewed plans. Departments debated priorities. Budgets were examined. Requests traveled from one headquarters to another. Months could disappear. Spruance believed months were a luxury the Pacific Fleet did not have. The next offensives were already being planned. The Mariana Islands loomed ahead. Saipan, Tinian, Guam, operations that would bring American forces closer to Japan than ever before. Waiting for endless paperwork made no sense to him. So construction began moving forward with remarkable speed. The island that nobody noticed suddenly became a giant construction site. Seabees arrived. Officially known as Naval Construction Battalions, the Seabees were among the most remarkable organizations in the entire American military. These men could arrive on an undeveloped island and build a functioning military base almost from nothing. Bulldozers roared across coral ground. Explosives blasted obstacles apart. Trucks carried materials day and night. Engineers surveyed land. Workers erected buildings. The transformation seemed almost unbelievable. What had recently been a remote Pacific outpost began turning into a city. You can almost imagine standing there in early 1944. The tropical heat presses down relentlessly. Engines roar in every direction. Construction crews move constantly. Dust hangs in the air. The sound of hammers mixes with the noise of generators and heavy machinery. Every hour brings another visible change. Another road, another warehouse, another dock, another fuel installation, another section of airfield. The pace felt relentless, because it was. Spruance wanted capability, not excuses. As weeks passed, the scale became impossible to ignore. Fuel tanks appeared. Repair facilities expanded. Communications systems grew more sophisticated. Aircraft operations increased. Supply depots multiplied. The lagoon filled with ships. More ships arrived. Then, even more. What had been empty water became one of the busiest naval areas in the Pacific. Many officers visiting the atoll found themselves stunned by the speed of development. The place seemed to grow every day, and that growth carried strategic consequences reaching far beyond the island itself. The Pacific War depended on logistics. Popular history often focuses on battles, carrier strikes, dogfights, amphibious assaults, battleships firing huge guns. Yet none of those operations could happen without supplies: fuel, food, medical equipment, ammunition, replacement parts, vehicles, construction materials. Every bomb dropped on Japan required an enormous support system behind it. Spruance understood this reality better than most. A fleet could only fight as long as it could be supplied. The further West American forces moved, the more important forward bases became. Kwajalein solved problems that had previously consumed valuable time and resources. Ships could refuel closer to future battle zones. Damaged vessels could receive repairs faster. Supplies could be stockpiled nearer to upcoming operations. Aircraft could operate from advanced positions. Commanders gained flexibility. Suddenly, entire campaigns became easier to support. And all of it was happening on an island that had barely attracted attention months earlier. What made the story unusual was the speed. Many participants later recalled how quickly projects moved compared to traditional peacetime procedures. The Pacific War rewarded action. Waiting carried its own risks. Every month the war continued meant more casualties, more ships exposed to attack, more uncertainty. Spruance belonged to a generation of commanders who believed battlefield realities often mattered more than bureaucratic comfort. If something clearly needed to exist, he preferred building it rather than debating it forever. That attitude earned respect. It also earned criticism. Not everyone loved commanders who pushed aggressively for their priorities. Resources remained limited. Every major construction effort competed against other demands. Some officials worried about overextension. Others questioned whether such rapid development was necessary. But events soon provided their answer. By mid-1944, American forces launched the invasion of the Mariana Islands. The battles for Saipan, Guam, and Tinian became some of the most important operations of the war. These islands would eventually support B-29 bombers capable of striking the Japanese home islands. The logistical burden was enormous. Thousands upon thousands of troops needed support. Massive quantities of fuel and ammunition flowed across the Pacific. Naval forces operated continuously. The infrastructure built behind the front lines suddenly proved its value. Bases like Kwajalein allowed the advance to maintain momentum. Instead of pausing for long periods between offensives, American forces increasingly moved from one operation to the next. The strategic pressure on Japan intensified, and the forgotten island kept working. Day after day, week after week, month after month. Cargo arrived, supplies moved, aircraft launched, ships anchored. Repairs continued. The atoll became part of the machinery driving the Pacific offensive forward. Yet the story becomes even more remarkable when viewed through the eyes of ordinary servicemen. Many arriving at Kwajalein expected little. What they found often surprised them. Facilities expanded rapidly. Services improved. Operational efficiency increased. The island developed characteristics of a major military center. For men crossing the Pacific, it became a familiar waypoint in a vast ocean. A place where ships gathered. A place where supplies waited. A place where the war moved forward. Its importance was measured not in headlines, but in results. The best logistical systems often attract little public attention. When they work, operations proceed smoothly. People focus on victories elsewhere. When they fail, disaster follows. Spruance understood that reality. His focus rarely centered on glory. He cared about effectiveness. That practical mindset shaped much of his leadership throughout the war. Unlike some commanders whose personalities dominated newspaper stories, Spruance often seemed almost understated. Yet beneath that calm exterior existed remarkable determination. The decision to aggressively develop forward infrastructure reflected that mindset perfectly. He saw a requirement. He acted. The results justified the effort. As 1944 continued, the Pacific War accelerated dramatically. American naval power reached unprecedented levels. Carrier task forces ranged across enormous distances. Japanese defensive lines weakened. The balance of power shifted further toward the United States. Every offensive depended upon logistics operating behind the scenes. Fuel storage mattered. Repair facilities mattered. Supply depots mattered. Construction mattered. The islands supporting the advance became as important in their own way as the battlefields themselves. Kwajalein stood among the most significant examples. What had started as a remote atoll became a critical foundation for future victories. And that transformation occurred because leaders recognized opportunity when they saw it. Today, when people study famous Pacific battles, attention naturally focuses on dramatic moments. Midway, Guadalcanal, Leyte Gulf, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, yet behind every famous battlefield stood countless engineers, construction crews, logisticians, sailors, and commanders building the infrastructure required to make victory possible. Their work rarely generated dramatic headlines, but wars are won through systems as much as through battles. Spruance understood that lesson better than most. The same calm judgment that helped him succeed at Midway also allowed him to see beyond immediate victories. Tarawa had revealed problems. Future campaigns demanded solutions. Waiting for perfect conditions was not an option. Action mattered. The forgotten island became proof. Years later, many military historians would point to the extraordinary logistical achievements of the Pacific Campaign as one of the greatest organizational accomplishments in modern warfare. Moving millions of tons of supplies across vast ocean distances required vision, planning, and relentless execution. Forward bases formed essential links in that chain. Without them, operations slowed. With them, momentum became possible. Kwajalein represented far more than another captured island. It became a symbol of how quickly American military power could transform empty terrain into operational capability. The coral atoll that once seemed insignificant became a vital engine supporting the drive toward Japan. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of the entire story. The meanest admiral in the Pacific did not build his legacy through shouting, theatrics, or dramatic public gestures. Raymond Spruance built it through decisions, through seeing what others overlooked, through recognizing that sometimes the most important weapon is not a battleship, an aircraft carrier, or a bomber. Sometimes it is a place, a forgotten place. A lonely island sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. An island nobody was supposed to notice. An island transformed into a giant military machine before many people even realized what was happening. After Tarawa, while others focused on the battle that had just ended, Spruance focused on the battles still to come. That difference in perspective changed everything. Because victories are not won only on beaches. They are won months earlier, in planning rooms, construction sites, supply depots, and remote islands where determined people prepare for the future. And on one forgotten Pacific atoll, a relentless admiral helped create exactly that future. The island began as coral and sand. It ended as a weapon. Not a weapon with guns or bombs, a weapon made of docks, fuel tanks, airfields, warehouses, and logistics. A weapon capable of projecting power across thousands of miles. A weapon that helped carry the Pacific War steadily toward its final chapter. And the remarkable part is that when it began, almost nobody outside a small circle of planners understood just how important that forgotten island would become. By the time they did, the transformation was already complete. The island nobody noticed had quietly become one of the foundations of victory.